The boy stood in the doorway like a ghost. Clay Maddox had been pouring whiskey into a tin cup when the knock came, 3 soft taps, hesitant like whoever was outside didn't really want to be heard. He set the bottle down slow, hand drifting toward the rifle leaning against the table. Folks didn't come calling at this hour. Not out here. Not anymore. When he opened the door, the wind pushed in first, cold and sharp with the smell of sage and dust. Then he saw the kid, small, maybe 8, maybe 10. Hard to tell with the dirt smeared across his face and the oversized coat hanging off his shoulders like a borrowed hide. His eyes were huge, dark, wet with something Clay couldn't name, fear maybe, or the kind of exhaustion that came from running too long. "Can you be my dad just for tonight?" The words came out in a rush, quiet and cracked, like the boy had been holding them in his chest for miles. Clay froze. His hand stayed on the doorframe. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. The boy stared up at him, trembling not from the cold, Clay realized, but from something deeper. Something that had hollowed him out from the inside. Behind the kid, the night stretched black and endless. No horse. No wagon. No lantern light trailing back toward town. Just the boy standing there like he'd been carved out of the dark itself. Clay's jaw tightened. "Where's your folks?" The boy flinched. His eyes dropped to the porch boards. Gone. Gone where? Just gone. Clay studied him. The coat wasn't his too big, the sleeves rolled up and pinned with what looked like a nail. His boots were split at the seams, tied together with twine. There was a bruise along his jaw, faint but fresh, and his knuckles were scraped raw. "Who sent you here?" "Nobody." The boy's voice cracked again. I saw your light. I thought maybe—" He trailed off, swallowing hard. "I thought maybe you wouldn't mind. Just for tonight. I won't be trouble. I can sleep in the barn. I just stop." The boy went still. Clay exhaled through his nose, slow and heavy. He looked past the kid again, scanning the horizon. Nothing moved. No dust clouds. No riders. Just the wind and the dark and the weight of a question he didn't want to answer. He should close the door. Should tell the boy to move along, find someone else, someone better suited for whatever this was. Clay Maddox wasn't a father. Wasn't even close. He was a man who'd buried too much and learned to live alone because it was easier that way. Safer, but the boy was still standing there, shaking, waiting. "Just for tonight," the boy whispered. "Please." Clay's hand tightened on the doorframe. Then, against every instinct screaming at him to shut this down, he stepped aside. "Get in." The boy's eyes went wide. He hesitated, like he didn't believe it, then darted inside before Clay could change his mind. The kid didn't sit, didn't speak. Just stood in the middle of the room, small and wary, like a coyote caught in a trap. Clay shut the door and bolted it, then moved to the stove and stirred the embers back to life. "You hungry?" The boy nodded. Clay sliced off a hunk of bread, smeared it with butter, and handed it over. The kid took it with both hands, careful, like it might disappear. He ate fast, eyes darting around the cabin, taking in the rifle, the table, the narrow cot in the corner. "What's your name?" Clay asked. The boy swallowed. "Ben." "Ben what?" "Just Ben." Clay didn't push. He poured water into a cup and set it on the table. Ben drank it in 3 gulps, then wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "How long you been running?" Ben's shoulders tensed. "I don't know." "A while." "From who?" The boy didn't answer. Clay crouched down, meeting his eyes. "You in trouble?" Ben's lip trembled. His voice came out small, barely a whisper. "I don't want to go back." "Back where, please?" The boy's eyes filled with tears. "Please don't make me go back." Clay held his gaze for a long moment. Then he stood, crossing to the window. He pulled the curtain aside and scanned the dark. Still nothing. But something about this didn't sit right. A kid didn't just show up out of nowhere, not this far from town, not asking to be someone's son for a night. You got someone looking for you? Ben didn't answer. Clay turned. Ben. The boy's hands were shaking. Maybe. I don't know. I couldn't stay there. I couldn't. There's Ben's jaw clenched. The house. With him. Clay's stomach tightened. Who's him? The boy looked away and Clay saw it then. The bruise on his jaw wasn't the only one. There was another along his collarbone, half hidden by the too big coat, and the way he held his left arm, tucked close to his ribs, like it hurt to move. Clay's voice dropped, low and dangerous. Someone put hands on you? Ben didn't answer. Didn't need to. Clay exhaled, slow and controlled, pushing down the rage rising in his chest. He'd seen this before. Too many times. Men who thought they could take what they wanted, do what they pleased because no one was watching, because no one cared. But Clay cared. He didn't want to, didn't ask to. But standing there, looking at this kid with his bruised face and hollow eyes, something in him cracked open, something he'd buried a long time ago. All right, Clay said quietly. You can stay. Tonight, we'll figure out the rest in the morning. Ben's eyes filled with something fragile and bright. Thank you. Clay nodded. He pulled a blanket off the cot and spread it near the stove. Sleep here. Stay warm. Ben curled up without a word, clutching the blanket like a lifeline. Within minutes, his breathing evened out, shallow and soft. Clay sat at the table, staring at the door. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, the fire crackled low. And in the silence, a single thought settled heavy in his chest. This isn't over. Someone would come looking. They always did. And when they arrived, Clay would have to decide, hand the boy over or stand between him and whatever monster had driven him into the night. He reached for the rifle and set it across his knees. Just for tonight, the boy had said. But Clay had a feeling tonight was about to stretch into something a hell of a lot longer. Morning came cold and sharp, the kind of dawn that burned the edges of the world clean. Clay woke to the sound of movement, soft, careful, like someone trying not to be heard. He cracked one eye open and saw Ben standing near the stove, feeding twigs into the embers with the concentration of a boy who'd done it 100 times before. Clay sat up slow, joints cracking. You know how to work a fire. Ben jumped, spinning around. His face went pale, then relaxed when he saw Clay wasn't angry. Sorry. I didn't mean to. It's fine. Clay stood, rolling his shoulders. You do that before? Ben nodded. At the house. I had to keep the stove going. He didn't like it when it went out. Clay's jaw tightened. He moved to the window and looked out. The yard was empty, the horizon still. No dust. No riders. Not yet. You got a last name, Ben. The boy hesitated. Holloway.
And this man you ran from?
He got a name? Ben's hands stilled on the firewood. Mr. Garrick. Clay turned. He kin to you, no. Ben's voice was barely a whisper. My ma died 2 winters back. Fever. There wasn't anyone else, so the town, they put me with him. Said he'd take care of me, but he didn't. Ben shook his head. Clay crossed the room and crouched down in front of him. Look at me. Ben raised his eyes, red-rimmed and weary. You don't owe that man anything, Clay said. You understand? Ben nodded, but his lip trembled. He'll come. He always comes. Let him. The boy's eyes widened. You don't know him? He's, don't care what he is. Clay's voice was iron. Long as you're under this roof, nobody touches you. That's a promise. Ben stared at him, something fragile blooming in his chest, hope maybe, or the ghost of it. Clay stood and moved to the cupboard, pulling out cornmeal in a pan. You ever make Johnny cakes? Ben shook his head. Then you're about to learn. They worked in silence, Clay showing him how to mix the batter, how to pour it slow so it didn't splatter. Ben watched every move, soaking it in like gospel. When the cakes came off the griddle, golden and crisp, Clay slid two onto a plate and handed them over. Ben ate like he hadn't seen food in days. Maybe he hadn't. How far's Garrick's place from here? Clay asked, keeping his tone casual. 3 miles. Maybe 4. Town know you're gone? Ben shrugged. Maybe. I don't think anyone cares. Clay's chest tightened. He'd heard that before, too. Seen kids slip through the cracks, invisible to everyone except the men who hurt them. Well, I care, Clay said. So we're gonna figure this out. Ben looked up, eyes wide. You mean I can stay? Clay hesitated. That was the question, wasn't it? The one that had been burning in the back of his mind since the kid showed up. He didn't know Ben, didn't owe him anything. And taking him in meant trouble, real trouble, the kind that showed up with fists and guns and the law on its side. But when he looked at the boy, small, bruised, desperate, he couldn't see a problem. He saw a kid who'd been failed by every adult who should protected him, and Clay had spent a long time running from guilt, from the past, from the faces he couldn't save. Maybe this was his chance to stop running. Yeah, Clay said quietly. You can stay. Ben's face crumpled. Tears spilled over, silent and fast, and he turned away, wiping at them with the back of his hand. Clay let him cry. Didn't say anything. Just kept flipping cakes, giving the boy space to fall apart without an audience. After a moment, Ben's voice came, small and broken. Why? Clay paused. Why? What? Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Clay set the spatula down. He turned, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. Because someone should helped you a long time ago. And since they didn't, I will. Ben looked at him, and for the first time since he'd arrived, something like trust flickered in his eyes. They spent the morning working the ranch, small tasks, easy ones. Clay showed Ben how to check the fence line, how to split kindling, how to curry the horse. The boy soaked it all in, quiet and focused like he was memorizing every word. Around midday, Clay heard it. Hoofbeats. He straightened, eyes narrowing. Ben heard it too. His face went white. He's coming, Ben whispered. Clay's hand dropped to the rifle slung across his back. Get inside. Stay low. But now, Ben ran. Clay turned toward the road, hand steady on the rifle. 2 riders crested the hill, one big, broad-shouldered with a flat-brimmed hat and a jaw like a boulder. The other was younger, wiry, with a badge pinned to his vest. The big man was Garrick. Had to be. They reined up 20 feet from the porch. Garrick's eyes swept the yard, cold and calculating. When they landed on Clay, his mouth curled into something that might been a smile. Afternoon, Garrick said. His voice was smooth, oily. Name's Ethan Garrick. This here's Deputy Brennan. We're looking for a boy. About yay high, dark hair. Ran off last night. Clay didn't move. What makes you think he's here? Garrick's smile widened. Because this is the only place for 10 miles. And I know he didn't head toward town. Maybe he kept running. Maybe. Garrick's eyes flicked to the cabin. Or maybe some fool took pity on him. Let him in. Clay's grip tightened on the rifle. Boy got a reason to run? Garrick's smile vanished. Boy's got a vivid imagination. Tells stories. Makes things up. That's so? It is, Izzy. Garrick leaned forward in the saddle. Now I've got a legal claim on that kid. Town put him in my care. So if he's here, you're gonna hand him over. Clay's voice was flat. And if I don't? The deputy shifted, hand drifting toward his sidearm. But Garrick raised a hand, stopping him. Then you're harboring a runaway, Garrick said. And that's a crime. Brennan here can arrest you. We can search the place. Either way, I'm leaving with my boy. Clay stared him down, weighing the moment. He could see it in Garrick's eyes, the cruelty, the entitlement. This was a man who hurt because he could, because no one stopped him. And if Clay handed Ben over, that boy would disappear into something worse than loneliness. He made his choice. He's not here, Clay said. Garrick's eyes narrowed. You sure about that? Positive? For a long moment, no one moved. Then Garrick spurred his horse forward, stopping just shy of the porch. You're making a mistake, Maddox. Clay's eyes didn't waver. Wouldn't be the first time. Garrick stared at him, jaw working. Then he turned his horse, slow and deliberate. This ain't over, he said. I'll be back. And next time, I won't ask nice. He rode off, the deputy trailing behind. Clay watched them disappear over the hill. Then he turned and walked inside. Ben was huddled in the corner, pale and shaking. Clay set the rifle down. He's gone. Ben looked up, tears streaming down his face. He'll come back. I know. What are we gonna do? Clay crouched down, meeting his eyes. We're gonna stand our ground. Together, Ben's lip trembled. Then, slowly, he nodded. And in that moment, Clay realized something. He'd just made a promise he couldn't break. The days that followed moved like water over stone, slow, steady, carving something permanent. Ben didn't talk much, but he worked. He fed the chickens at dawn, hauled water from the well, helped Clay mend the fences that ran along the north ridge. At night, he sat by the fire, small and quiet, watching Clay whittle or clean the rifle. Sometimes he asked questions about the ranch, about the land, about Clay's life before. Clay answered what he could, left out what he couldn't. But the boy was learning not just chores, but something deeper, how to exist without flinching, how to move through a room without waiting for punishment, how to sleep without waking every hour, listening for footsteps. It broke Clay's heart a little more each day. On the fourth morning, they rode into town. Clay needed supplies, flour, salt, ammunition. He tied Ben close, told him to stay quiet, keep his head down. The boy nodded, nervous but trusting. The general store was crowded, thick with the smell of tobacco and leather. Clay moved through the aisles, gathering what he needed, while Ben stayed at his side like a shadow. Then the door opened. Garrick. Clay felt it before he saw him, the shift in the room, the way conversations died mid-sentence. Ben went rigid, hand clutching Clay's sleeve. Garrick stepped inside, boots heavy on the floorboards. His eyes swept the store, then landed on Clay and Ben. For a moment, no one moved. Then Garrick smiled. Well, there he is. Clay's hand drifted toward his sidearm, slow and deliberate. Keep walking, Garrick. Garrick's smile widened. Can't do that. Boy belongs to me. He doesn't belong to anyone. Law says different. Garrick took a step forward. You had your chance, Maddox. Now I'm taking what's mine. Clay moved in front of Ben, blocking him. You take another step, and we're gonna have a problem. Garrick's eyes flicked to the gun on Clay's hip, then to the rifle slung across his back. He laughed, low and cold. You really want to do this? Here. In front of all these folks, Clay didn't blink. If I have to. The room held its breath. Then the deputy stepped in. Brennan, same wiry frame, same badge. He moved between them, hands raised. All right, that's enough. Garrick, back off. Maddox, stand down. Garrick's jaw tightened. He's got my boy. And you're about to start a gunfight in the middle of town. Brennan's voice was sharp. That ain't happening. Garrick stared at Clay, fury simmering behind his eyes. Then, slowly, he stepped back. This ain't over, Maddox. You hear me? That boy's coming home, one way or another. Clay didn't answer, just turned, hand on Ben's shoulder, and walked out. They rode hard, fast, the town disappearing behind them in a cloud of dust. Ben didn't speak, didn't ask questions, just held on, knuckles white around the saddle horn. When they reached the ranch, Clay dismounted and helped Ben down. The boy's hands were shaking. He's gonna come, isn't he? Ben whispered. Clay looked at him, steady and sure. Yeah, he is. What are we gonna do? Clay crouched down, meeting his eyes. We're gonna be ready. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Clay checked every window, every door. He loaded the rifle, the shotgun, the revolver. He stockpiled water, food, ammunition, turned the cabin into a fortress. Ben watched, silent and wide-eyed. Why are you doing this? He asked finally. Clay paused, hands stilling on the barrel of the rifle. Because you asked me to be your dad, and a father protects his son. Ben's breath hitched. His eyes filled with tears. Clay reached out, resting a hand on his shoulder. I meant what I said, Ben. Forever. The boy nodded, tears spilling over. They came at dusk. Clay saw them first, 3 riders, moving slow across the ridge. Garrick in the lead, the deputy beside him, and a third man Clay didn't recognize. They reined up at the edge of the property, just beyond rifle range. Clay stepped out onto the porch, rifle in hand. Ben stayed inside, watching through the window. That's far enough, Clay called. Garrick dismounted, hands raised. We don't want trouble, Maddox. Just the boy. He's not going anywhere. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Then turn around and leave. Garrick's expression darkened. I've got the law on my side. I've got witnesses. I've got a legal claim. You've got nothing. Clay's voice was low, dangerous. I've got him. And that's all that matters. Garrick took a step forward. Last chance, Maddox. Hand him over and we walk away. Keep him, and I'll make sure you hang for kidnapping. Clay raised the rifle, sighting down the barrel. Take another step, and you won't walk away at all. The deputy moved his hand toward his gun. The third man followed suit. For a moment, the world balanced on a knife's edge. Then Garrick smiled. You can't watch him forever, Maddox. Sooner or later, you'll slip. And when you do, I'll be there. He mounted his horse, slow and deliberate. This ain't over. They rode off, disappearing into the gathering dark. Clay lowered the rifle, exhaling slow. His hands were steady, but his heart was pounding. Inside, Ben stood frozen, pale and shaking. Clay stepped back into the cabin and bolted the door. He's not giving up, Ben whispered. I know. What do we do? Clay set the rifle down and knelt in front of him. We hold the line, no matter what. Ben looked at him, eyes wide and desperate. Why? Why are you risking everything for me? Clay's voice was quiet, raw. Because you deserve better. And because I'm done standing by while men like him destroy good kids. Ben's lip trembled. Then slowly he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around Clay's neck, holding on like he was drowning. Clay held him back, tight and sure. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, something unbreakable was being forged. The storm came that night, fast and vicious, the kind that turned the world black and swallowed sound. Rain hammered the roof, wind screamed through the eaves, and lightning split the sky in jagged white cracks. Ben couldn't sleep. He lay on the cot near the stove, curled tight under the blanket, flinching every time thunder rolled overhead. Clay sat at the table, cleaning the rifle by lamplight. He glanced over, saw the boy trembling, and set the gun aside. "You all right?" Ben nodded, but it was a lie. Clay stood and crossed the room. He pulled a chair close and sat down, elbows on his knees. "Your ma, she afraid of storms?" Ben's eyes flicked up, surprised. Then he shook his head. "No, she liked them. Used to say they were the earth cleaning itself. Smart woman." Ben's throat worked. She was. She used to sing during storms. Said it kept the thunder from getting too loud. Clay was quiet for a moment. Then softly he asked, "What'd she sing?" Ben's voice cracked. "I don't remember. It's been so long," I broke off, tears spilling over. "I can't even remember her voice anymore." Clay's chest tightened. He reached out, resting a hand on the boy's shoulder. "That doesn't mean she's gone." Ben looked at him, confused. "She's still here," Clay said, "in the way you work, the way you keep your head down and push through. That's her. She taught you that." Ben's lip trembled. "You think so?" "I know so." The boy wiped at his eyes, sniffling. Did you have a family?" Before, Clay's hand stilled. He pulled back, jaw tightening. "Once." "What happened?" Clay stared at the floor, the weight of memory pressing down. "Fever. Same as your ma. Took my wife. My daughter." His voice was rough, hollowed out. "I couldn't save them." Ben's eyes widened. "I'm sorry." Clay shook his head. "You got nothing to be sorry for. But you lost them, and now you're risking everything for me." "Why?" Clay met his eyes, and for the first time he let the truth out. "Because I couldn't save them. But I can save you." Ben's breath hitched. "And because," Clay continued, voice low and steady, "you asked me to be your dad. I haven't been anybody's father in a long time. Didn't think I ever would be again." He paused. "But then you showed up, and you reminded me what it felt like to matter." Ben's tears came fast and silent. He sat up, wrapping his arms around Clay, holding on like he was afraid to let go. Clay held him back, tight and sure, and for the first time in years, the ache in his chest didn't feel like drowning. It felt like healing. The storm broke just before dawn, leaving the world washed clean and still. Clay woke to the smell of coffee, strong, bitter, perfect. He sat up and saw Ben at the stove, stirring the pot with careful hands. "You made coffee?" Ben looked over, shy but proud. "You showed me how. I wanted to try to." Clay poured himself a cup, took a sip, and nodded. "Not bad, kid." Ben's face lit up. They ate in comfortable silence, Johnny cakes and bacon, the kind of breakfast that felt like home. Outside, the sun climbed higher, burning off the last of the clouds. Then Ben spoke, quiet and hesitant. "Can I ask you something? Shoot." Do you really mean it?" "About forever?" Clay set his cup down, meeting the boy's eyes. "I don't say things I don't mean." Ben swallowed hard. "But what if Garrick comes back? What if the law says I have to go? Then we'll fight it." "But Ben." Clay's voice was iron. "I made you a promise, and I keep my promises, no matter what." Ben's eyes filled with something bright and fragile, hope, trust, maybe even love. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." Later that morning, Clay took Ben out to the ridge. They stood together, looking out over the valley, wide, open, endless. This land belonged to my father, Clay said, and his father before him. They built it from nothing, fought for every inch. Ben looked up at him. Is it yours now? Yeah. And one day, if you want it, it'll be yours. Ben's breath caught. You mean that? Clay nodded. You're my son now, Ben. That means this is your home, your land, your future. Ben stared out at the valley, eyes wide and shining. Then slowly a smile broke across his face, small, genuine, the first real smile Clay had seen. Thank you, Ben whispered. Clay rested a hand on his shoulder. You don't have to thank me. You're family now. They stood there together, father and son, watching the sun climb higher. And for the first time in a long time, Clay felt something he thought he'd lost forever, peace. But peace in the West never lasted long. That afternoon, riders appeared on the horizon, 6 of them, moving fast. Clay saw them first. His hand dropped to his gun. Ben froze. Is it him? Clay's jaw tightened. Yeah. And he brought friends. They rode hard, coming to a stop just outside the fence line. Garrick sat at the front, flanked by the deputy and 4 hired guns, hard men with dead eyes and easy triggers. Garrick dismounted, slow and deliberate. Last chance, Maddox. Hand over the boy and we leave? Keep him, and we take him. Clay stepped forward, rifle in hand. You're not taking him. Then you're a dead man. The hired guns spread out, hands hovering over their sidearms. Ben stood on the porch, pale and shaking. Clay's voice was low, steady, dangerous. You want him, you go through me. Garrick's smile was cold. So be it. The world held its breath. And then everything exploded. The first shot came from the left, a hired gun with a scarred face and quick hands. Clay saw the draw, spun and fired. The man dropped, clutching his shoulder. The others went for their guns. Clay moved fast, rifle cracking in steady rhythm. 1 shot, 2, 3, each one precise, controlled. He wasn't trying to kill. Just stop. Disarm. Protect. But Garrick wasn't retreating. He charged forward, snarling, sidearm drawn. Clay swung the rifle, catching him across the jaw. Garrick staggered, blood spraying, but didn't go down. He lunged, grabbing for the gun. They grappled, crashing into the dirt. Garrick was bigger, heavier, but Clay fought with something deeper: desperation, fury, love. Behind them, Ben screamed. The deputy moved toward the porch, gun drawn. Clay saw it, saw the threat, saw Ben frozen in the doorway. He wrenched free from Garrick, rolled, and brought the rifle up. Don't. The deputy stopped, gun trembling. Clay's voice was ice. You pull that trigger and you're a dead man. The deputy looked at Ben, then at Clay. Then slowly he lowered his gun. This is wrong, he said quietly. You know it is. Garrick snarled from the ground. Brennan, don't you know? The deputy's voice was firm. I'm done. I saw the bruises. I heard the stories. I know what you are, Garrick. He holstered his gun, turned, and walked away. The hired guns followed, limping and bleeding. Garrick stared up at Clay, hatred burning in his eyes. You think you've won? You think this is over? Clay crouched down, pressing the rifle barrel against his chest. It is for you. Garrick spat blood. I'll be back. Then I'll be waiting. Clay stood, grabbed Garrick by the collar, and dragged him to his horse. He threw him into the saddle, hard and rough. Get off my land, and don't come back. Garrick glared at him, jaw working. Then, slowly, he spurred his horse and rode off alone, beaten, broken. Clay watched him disappear over the ridge. Then he turned and walked back to the porch. Ben stood frozen, tears streaming down his face. Clay knelt in front of him, hands on his shoulders. "You're safe. He's gone." Ben's voice was small, broken. "Is it really over?" Clay nodded. "Yeah, kid. It's over." Ben collapsed into his arms, sobbing raw, uncontrollable, the kind of tears that came from a place too deep for words. Clay held him, steady and sure, and let him cry. 2 weeks later, Clay and Ben rode into town. The deputy was waiting outside the sheriff's office. He nodded when they approached. "Garrick's gone," Brennan said. "Left the territory. Won't be coming back." Clay's jaw tightened. "You sure? Positive?" "I filed a report. Got statements from neighbors. He won't be bothering anyone again." Ben looked up, eyes wide. "Really?" Brennan crouched down, meeting his eyes. "Really? You're free, son." Ben's lip trembled. Then, slowly, he smiled. They stayed in town long enough to file the paperwork, official adoption papers, signed and sealed by the judge. When it was done, Clay shook the judge's hand and walked out with Ben at his side. "So," Clay said, glancing down, "how's it feel to be a Maddox?" Ben's smile was bright, unguarded, real. "Feels right." Clay's chest tightened. He rested a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Come on. Let's go home." "Why?" The barn had been rebuilt larger and stronger. The fields stretched wide and green, cattle grazing under the endless sky. And in the middle of it all stood a man and a boy, older now, taller but still together. Ben was 17, broad-shouldered and steady, working the fence line with the same quiet focus Clay had taught him. Clay watched from the porch, coffee in hand, pride swelling in his chest. Ben looked over, caught his eye, and grinned. Clay grinned back. That night they sat by the fire, the same way they had years ago. Ben was reading some book he'd picked up in town. Clay was whittling, shaping wood with patient hands. "You ever think about that night?" Ben asked quietly. "The night I showed up?" Clay looked up. "Every day." Ben was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I asked you to be my dad just for one night." Clay's mouth curved into a small smile. "And I said forever." Ben's eyes shone. "You meant it. Still do." Ben set the book aside and crossed the room. He wrapped his arms around Clay, holding on tight. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." Clay held him back, steady and sure. "You don't have to thank me, son. That's what family does." Outside, the wind stirred the grass. The stars stretched wide and endless overhead, and in the warm glow of the firelight, two shadows stood together, father and son, unbreakable, forever bound by a promise made in the dark, a promise kept forever.